Hello and welcome to the Film School Snobs podcast. I'm Alexander Zapata,
And I'm Jalen Michael.
and this is now the fifth episode of the Film School Snobs. Jalen,
Woohoo.
how's everything going?
Yeah, everything's going pretty well. I'm surprised we got it this far,
Yeah,
building up our channel.
yeah. It's so much fun when we got two really good friends, talking about movies, and we go on about like God knows what. I've had a lot of fun doing this. Getting to 5 episodes.
Same.
It seems like a small milestone, but it's really big, and I'm hoping we get to like 1 million or whatever.
Yeah, shoot, I'm down for it.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
And our channel keeps on growing. Our videos are getting plenty of views. We're almost at 30 subscribers right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we're doing really good. And I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah, guys, whoever's watching, just keep spreading this out. Gonna grow really big soon.
Yep, we'll be like the next Mr. Sunday and Nick Mason or whoever.
We'll be better than them.
Yeah. So we had like a really packed weekend this weekend. A lot of movies that I honestly wouldn't have seen if I didn't have this podcast, but I'm glad I saw all of them to a certain extent. Because man, there's just so much to talk about with some of the movies this weekend.
Oh yeah.
So I guess let's get started with Men in Black, the movie that has like the least to talk about in my opinion. Jalen, what did you think of Men in Black International?
So I'll start off with saying that because F. Gary Gray, he's the director for this, and I was really excited when I heard about it because he has a really clean track record of films that I enjoy, from Italian Job, Straight Outta Compton. The last one he did, Fate of the Furious, I thought was pretty good.
I love Fate of the Furious.
Yeah, so his track record I thought was pretty clean, and just as someone being African American myself, just seeing a black director get more blockbusters, I was ready to support it day one. But if I'm being honest, this movie was just a colossal disappointment for me. Just not even a sense I thought it was bad. It was just
painfully mediocre and generic.
Yeah, for real.
I feel the same way. This had a really interesting premise because the first few Men in Black movies take place solely in New York.
Yeah.
And for me, they do such a great job at creating this unique environment in New York where like they incorporate aliens into everyday life.
Yeah.
So you could have done something really interesting where you take that to like an international level. And for me, they never really do anything interesting with the aliens, like incorporating them in like London or Paris or whatever country they go to.
Yeah, right. No, I agree because I mean, the last Men in Black with Men in Black 3, I know people said it was a dry sequel, but I kind of liked it because they added the whole element of time travel with it. And it allowed them to do like for a lot of creative stuff. It actually got emotional at points. Like it was a gimmick, but it was a gimmick that kept the story moving. But now the gimmick for this one is just, it's Men in Black, but we're globetrotting now. It's international.
Yeah, it's and now we're quote unquote woke because we're the man and woman.
Yeah,
that's not how wokeness works.
That was the one joke that I actually got a chuckle out of me in this movie. Chris Hemsworth's delivery on that was good. But even still, like, the whole international, like, it could have been like 007 with aliens with it going international, but they didn't do anything with it. And I'm just highly disappointed. It's just another mediocre blockbuster for the summer.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree because I was really looking forward to this movie since, like you said, you got F. Gary Gray. He's a really competent director. He's made some really good movies. A lot movies that are a lot of fun. And he had Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth coming straight off of Thor Ragnarok, which they were great in. They were the best part of that movie. And so you could have made something really fun, and you could have just made something really fun. And instead, we get pretty lame jokes, boring action scenes, and just generic nothing story, really.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll touch on the story. So, like, I guess in this one you have Tessa Thompson. She plays Molly, and she spends her whole life searching for the Men in Black because when she's young, she sees her parents neuralized. So she goes up. Eventually, she finds them. She joins them, and she's sent to London for her first assignment. And that's where she teams up with Chris Hemsworth. And I guess I don't really know the story from there. They have to save the world from some alien species or something like that. I mean, just from the premise alone, you could tell it's just generic fluff for the summer.
Yeah.
But I think because these past few weeks, we got a lot of, just since we started this podcast, a bunch of generic blockbusters from Godzilla to Dark Phoenix. This one I don't think is as bad as those two, but it's just so, like you were saying, it's so forgettable.
Exactly. Yeah, I've mostly found like more like the smaller budget indie films are the ones that I've gravitated to, or like at least the mid budget films.
Right.
Because like later I'm going to talk about Last Black Man in San Francisco, but that's probably my favorite movie this summer. Rocket Man was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Booksmart. Booksmart too, yeah. And just like when we get all these blockbusters, and a lot of them have a lot of potential, it's just they fall flat in the execution, which is really disappointing.
Yeah, it's tough. But I mean, I guess we were pretty crapping on this movie for a while, but I will say there are some things I did like about it. I did think that Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson, they worked pretty well again with each other once again. They actually kind of remind me of, I think I talked about it maybe 2 weeks ago, the show Archer, where essentially Hemsworth, he's Archer, where he's like really competent at his job, but he's also kind of a jackass. And Tessa Thompson, she's the Lana character who's his counterpart, but they're always like going head to head with each other. So that relationship and their dynamic is what really carries the movie from being complete trash for me. But other than that, there's really not much else to really spend your money to see here.
Yeah, because even like it would be completely different if this was like a really bad movie where they messed up on every single thing. Yeah. That would make it more memorable, honestly.
Right.
It's not bad, it's not good, it's just extremely generic, extremely boring, and really forgettable. I really just don't have much to say about it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, so disappointing. Even the big twist of the movie, it's like, all right, yeah, I know.
Yeah. So Men in Black International, really, really mediocre. Jalen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just I guess to reiterate what you said, I don't hate the movie. I won't even say I disliked it. It's just, I could do without it, but
exactly,
I'm not mad I saw it.
So I guess let's move on to another movie. Let's move on to Late Night. Okay. I want to save the other two movies that came out this weekend for later on because I have a lot to say about those two. I also have a lot to say about Late Night, which I really enjoyed. So what were your thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, I guess right off the bat, I'll say I really enjoyed it as well. It's a story we've seen before. It's pretty much a Devil Wears Prada just thrown into the world of late night talk show writing. But they're able to incorporate like the themes of gender and ethnicity in the workplace and, living up to surpassed labels. So it's a sweet watch. I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, no, same here. I just really loved how they tackled like diversity in media. Especially coming from the two of us. We're not white. Like, you're African American, I'm Latino. And we're both trying to break it into media. And it's interesting when you see this movie, this is from the point of view of, what's her name? Mindy Kaling's character, Molly Patel.
Right. And that's her name, Molly.
Yeah. And, she's this Indian American woman trying to make her way into this talk show. And she walks into this boardroom and there's nothing but white dudes. Writing the show for a 50-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And so it's just really interesting to see her, break her way into the TV show, have her voice put out there and encourage the host, played by Emma Thompson, to like really just inject her voice into the show, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. I like that whole dynamic with it. And I really like Mindy Kaling's character. Like, she was really determined at her new job, she comes in very inexperienced at it. But I do like how the film showed her struggles as she's trying to make a name for herself because she's the only woman of color on the team.
Exactly. And fun fact, sorry to cut you off. Fun fact: this movie is written by Mindy Kaling.
Right.
And it's directed by Indian American woman or Indian Canadian. She was born in Canada. Misha Ganacha.
Oh, nice. I actually didn't know that part. That's good. And I guess that just goes to show like diversity behind the scenes is just as important. You get, I won't say this movie's like extremely unique, but you just get a new voice in here. So
exactly, and like that's really what's important nowadays in film and TV and whatnot. This isn't gonna break any records. This is like the most groundbreaking film, but it's getting new voices out there. It's even a film about getting new voices out there and how it makes things original and fresh. And I just really enjoyed that.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think we really touched too much on the comedy aspect here, but the movie I got a bunch of laughs throughout. It's consistently funny, I thought.
Oh yeah, no, a lot of the jokes were really good. I really enjoyed a lot of them. There's like a couple of jokes like within the actual like talk show that I thought
Mhm.
like if they turned that to like an actual bit in like a TV show, I would love it. It would just be so much fun.
Now let me ask you something. So you have Ike Barinholtz in this movie, which I didn't even know he was in at first. But
Mhm.
what did you think of his character?
Remind me. Oh, he was the comedian, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
like super offensive comedian.
right.
Yeah, no, I thought his character was really interesting. Because it's very. I don't see a whole lot of comedians like that today. I mean, the closest I could think of is Louis C.K. because after his whole scandal thing, like he started like turning to humor that's like just extremely offensive.
Yeah.
But no, I thought his character was really interesting. It was like a nice foil to like Emma Thompson and what she's trying to go for.
Mm.
And so he worked really well in the film.
Yeah, I liked him a lot too, but it was actually kind of funny because I mean, you listen to the jokes because he does stand up throughout the film,
Hmm.
and you actually listen to his jokes. It's like, oh wow, this is not funny at all. But I guess for the
Yeah.
purposes of the movie, it's supposed to be funny. But I was
Hmm.
just thinking about it. It's like this guy kind of reminds me of a certain comedian now. And then I was thinking about it more. It's like, holy crap! I guess he's supposed to be Tosh Point oh.
I
I
don't think I've
guess
heard of him.
Oh, Daniel Tosh. Well, yeah, he had that show Tosh Point oh that went on for a while, but I
Hmm.
mean, I guess he's really popular to hate now because his jokes aren't really funny.
Gotcha.
But there's no punchline to them, and that's what this whole character was. I really loved that. I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
good.
Because like within like the opening scene, like you see Emma Thompson watching one of his comedy specials, and he's just like making this whole joke about pooping in someone's
Yeah,
shoes, and it's just like this really obscene joke that's like it's funny because it's poop, and
yeah,
it's like, but it's not at all.
yeah. I love that. That's great comedy, just written throughout. And I got to give props to Mindy Kaling because I think we said earlier, like the story, it's not original, but I
Mm,
do like how she wrote these characters in a more realistic sense, as
mm,
opposed to like Devil Wears Prada, where I like that movie, but I felt like the characters are just like so fantastical and so like far fetched. This one, they're a bit more grounded, and it allowed for the jokes to be bounced off more humanly. So give
mm.
it props for that.
Yeah. So yeah, late night. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it, especially as like people of color and women of color. If you want to, break your way into media, definitely go check this one out. This is definitely like a motivational story.
Yeah, and I co-sign that.
So I guess let's move on to Shaft.
Uh,
Jalen, I'm gonna let you go first, and then I'm gonna tear this movie apart.
okay, so I guess we're already on the opposite side of the fence, but
Yep.
so I'll say this: I was expecting this movie to suck for numerous of reasons. Start off, Tim Story's the director, and his catalog is, to say the least, is very crappy.
Hmm.
The two Fantastic Four movies, Think Like a Man 2. Um, and another reason too was at this same exact time last year, I had to sit through another reboot of a '70s black exploitation classic with Superfly, and
Hmm.
that was like my least favorite movie of last year. So you can imagine my surprise. I walked out of this movie, and I actually, for the most part, I had a pretty good time. I laughed throughout. Uh, there's a lot of bad crap that goes on in this movie, but for the most part, I had a fun time.
Hmm. Okay, so here comes the part where I just completely tear apart Shaft. First of all, keep in mind, I haven't seen the original Shaft. I've only seen the 2000 remake,
Right.
which I thought was really fun. I really enjoyed that one.
Mm.
And so, the trailers looked okay. I really like the joke about, oh, you can't beat up a woman that's misogynist. He's like, I'm an equal opportunity butt beater. I'm not gonna curse on this because my grandma listens to this and my mom. He's like, yeah, I'm an equal opportunity butt beater. That's misogynist for saying that. I
yeah.
thought that was a really funny joke. So I'm like, maybe this might turn out all right.
Yeah.
Then I'm watching the movie and it just rubbed me the wrong way because this movie seems like old people making fun of millennials just
Yeah.
because with like no rhyme or reason. It's just, oh, millennials, they're too soft, they're not manly enough.
Yeah.
And so you have like constant jokes of like Shaft Senior calling out Shaft Junior like, oh, you're not man enough because you don't sleep with this many women, and oh, you must be gay, and oh, you're too soft because you don't like guns.
Hmm.
And it just really rubbed me the wrong way. It's baby boomers complaining about millennials, the movie,
You
and
see,
without like acknowledging the fact of how outdated that mindset is.
uh, well, I'm actually kind of surprised because I guess we're not on the opposite side of the fence because that was like actually my biggest complaint with this movie. So I guess like a lot of what makes Sam Jackson's Shaft character work, at least what it used to, was that he's very non-PC and he's blunt.
Mm,
And like you were saying, he makes jokes against his son and his generation, and it does come off as homophobic and misogynistic. But there was a point where I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I guess that's the point, because he's criticizing JJ's life choices, the clothes he wears, his sex life, and you have JJ retort back to him and question his way of thinking. So
mm,
I'm like, oh, okay, so the Shaft movies are always about black masculinity and according to who, what should it be defined as? I thought this movie was saying like, oh, okay, we shouldn't just have one vision of what a black hero should be. Just be confident, stay true to yourself. That whole corniness. I was like, okay,
mm.
this is cool. Uh, then at the end of the movie, they kind of just like throw all that out the window, and it's like,
Exactly.
yeah, just kidding. Black dorky guys, they're pretty whack. Every woman wants a Shaft character. It's
Exactly. And I just feel like that's the wrong message to be putting out there, because then you're just gonna have a bunch of people like saying, "Oh, look at me, I'm not manly enough because
yeah,
I don't sleep with this many women and I don't get in these epic shootouts." And here's the thing about like characters like Shaft or like even like James Bond, or even they
hmm
are like your typical masculine characters.
yeah,
Like, like they get in these cool fights, these cool shootouts. They sleep with a lot of women. Like Chef says, if your mom, if you listen to this, I'm sorry. I'm just quoting the movie. He says stuff like, "It's my duty to please the
a
booty."
booty.
Yeah, and that's part of his character, and it's like it's something that a lot of people see as cool, and that's fine. The issue
hmm
is when it gets taken to an extent where he just objectifies women, and then he makes fun of every other man who's not just like him,
Exactly.
and that's when you're taking things too far, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, they could have still done that and just like have the whole message be like JJ kind of rejecting his father's old way of thinking.
I think that would have
But
made for a movie that's 10 times better.
yeah, and that's what I thought they were doing. But I mean, and the reason I'm saying like that's the opposite of what they're doing, because you look at what's his Alexandra Shipp, that's her name,
Hmm.
who plays JJ's love interest. Because she spends pretty much the whole movie priding herself on not being the basic chick, where like she actually helps out on the case. She doesn't want to be the damsel in distress. But
Hmm.
I guess it's not really a spoiler. You could kind of see where this is going. But she does the exact opposite. She becomes the damsel in distress. She's only
Yep.
shown to be sexually attracted to JJ once he like starts shooting a bunch of people and
Exactly.
champs his father. And it's like you guys dropped the ball on this completely. And
Yeah.
I want to chop it up to lazy writing, but the thing is, the writer of this movie, he created one of my favorite shows that's on TV now, which is Kenya Barris, and he created
Hmm.
Blackish. And it's shocking because Blackish, that show, it's like they have like real conversations. It's very three dimensional. This one is
Hmm.
just so straightforward. It's actually kind of upsetting to me.
Yeah, and like I especially want to talk about Alexandra Shipp's character. Let's go deep into spoilers because I don't recommend the movie. You do, I don't. But let's just go deep into spoilers. It seems like no one really watched it anyway. It bombed this weekend.
Yeah.
But one of the scenes that like really made me upset, that I'm just like, this is really misogynist for no reason. Early on in the movie, she makes fun of Shop Junior for not owning a gun. She's like, "Oh, even I own a gun, and I live in the safe part of Brooklyn."
Yeah.
And so later on in the movie, like they're out on a date and they're talking about the case, and then two thugs come after them. And so she takes the gun out of her purse and she's like, "Oh, but I don't know how to use this."
Yeah.
And so Shaft Jr. just grabs the gun. He's like, "Oh, give it to me. I'll do it." And then he shoots them out, and it's like the coolest scene ever because he's a man and he can shoot them, and he gets this cool fight.
hmm
But you just went out of your way to make fun of Shaft Jr. for not having a gun and
Exactly.
showing that, what's her name again? Sasha, that she's better because she has a gun, and yet she doesn't know how to use the gun because, oh, she's just a woman, and he knows how to use it because he's a man.
Exactly.
That just rubbed me the wrong way.
It's so inconsistent on like, oh, we want to celebrate strong women, but at the same time, we want to keep them in their place and let the men shine
Mm,
here. It's
yeah.
such a backwards way of thinking. And yeah, I mean, I thought we were gonna like actually disagree on a bunch of stuff here, but
Mm,
now this was the biggest issue for me with this movie as well.
yeah. Because I will say when movies not, enforcing this toxic masculinity, like there are some cool parts. There are some funny jokes, but it's not
Yeah,
enforcing that. I thought the third act, where like all three generations of Shaft get together, that was a fun action scene. I really enjoyed
yeah,
that.
yeah, I like
Um,
that.
it's just I don't like this overall message that the movie is giving out, where it's like you're not a real man unless you do this.
Yeah,
Like that's nowadays, like the conversation about masculinity has become so complex, where there's not just one single definition of what a real man is. It's really just it's left up to interpretation to the man. You know,
exactly.
like, my view of masculinity can be different from your view of masculinity, and this movie just throws all of that out the window.
Exactly. And that's disappointing. But I mean, overall, like aside from that, I guess I had a better time just ignoring that whole message of the movie. And I'll say it caught me off guard too, because I thought the first act was just absolutely terrible. It it sets up the story for JJ because he's a data analyst for the CIA or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess like we were saying, he's supposed to be this dorky type of guy. And I thought that was interesting. Again, going into the whole black masculinity thing. But I just what's the actor's name? Jesse T. Usher, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't think he was that funny to carry the movie by himself for those first 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, he was just really annoying.
Yeah, and the writing definitely didn't do him any favors because the dialogue was like very trite and basic. But yeah, it just took me out automatically. But once Sam Jackson enters the film, I think that's where you kind of separate an experienced actor from an amateur. Because for me, he made the movie just a lot more funnier. Just had a lot more energy to it, and I was able to just ignore the whole toxic masculinity that spread throughout the entire film and just have fun with it. But yeah, overall, I do agree with what you're saying though. It's not a very good message to spread out for your film.
Yeah, and also like I said, I haven't seen the original Shaft, but I saw the 2001 like the night before I saw this movie.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching this version of Shaft, and this version he's cool, he's slick, he's smooth, and then he doesn't do anything outrageous,
Yeah.
And then you get to this version of Shaft in the 2019 remake or sequel or reboot, whatever, and he just says all this outrageous things where it's like, yeah, he's a masculine guy, but like that's not something I would see him saying in the 2000 reboot,
Exactly.
It just seems like two completely different characters.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a miscommunication as far as how they wanted to interpret Shaft between the two versions. I think, I don't know, have you ever watched the show The Boondocks?
I might have when I was younger.
There's a character on there, Riley Freeman, and essentially he's Shaft in this movie, except he's 8 years old, where he just says the most outlandish and offensive things, but, the writer, and you're supposed to be in on the joke. Like the writer knows it's offensive and outlandish, so it's all satire. With this, it's like they're kind of just pushing this Shaft's narrative to be, let me just say the most ruthless and outlandish things and not be called out on it because I'm right and you're wrong. It's like, okay, it's funny, but at the same time, it's like, come on, guys, we're in 2019 now. I don't think this is cool anymore.
Yeah, we've moved on from that.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts on Shaft?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I still enjoyed it. Sam Jackson, Regina Hall, I don't think we talked about, but I thought she was really funny in this too. And Richard Roundtree, they all give funny performances for me that I was able to have a good time with this. But just with how like non-PC this movie is, I don't think it's going to connect with a lot of people. So I think it's more of an acquired taste type of thing where if you're able to ignore all the toxic masculinity nonsense that goes on here, I think it's still a fun time. But yeah, this is something you probably should wait till it comes on Netflix or Hulu or something.
Yeah. I personally don't recommend this movie. Honestly, it's probably gonna go on my worst of the year list. If we decide to make those. I did not find myself enjoying this movie at all. So with that being said, let's move on to our next movie, which is such a weird movie and such a flawed movie, but I really enjoyed it. The Dead Don't Die.
I guess we're doing another flip here then.
You didn't like it?
I did not like this movie at all, man.
You see, I don't know what it is with this is okay. So let's just jump straight into spoilers because there's no way we can talk about this movie without spoiling it. Jeez, what the heck is this movie?
I, if you want me to start off, I'll say that I'm not the biggest fan of Jim Jarmusch, and it's not that I dislike his work or anything. It's just I haven't seen enough of it to consider myself a fan. Like I've seen Ghost Dog, and I actually like that movie a lot. And the only other movie I saw for him was Patterson, which also starred Adam Driver. And I thought it was actually really good. Other than that, I'm very naked coming into this movie, not knowing what to expect. And the trailers have sold me on a dry comedy about a zombie takeover, but all it really is just a slow burn movie with straight deadpan acting. And oh yeah, it has zombies in it too.
Zombies, aliens, this weird meta humor, and so much of it just doesn't work for me personally. And what does work is like really funny. Like there's just like a lot of jokes in here that I really loved. Whereas I acknowledge like the story is a mess. There are characters that can be cut out, subplots that can be cut out. But man, there's just like some really funny jokes in this.
Yeah, and I agree. I thought the actors they had here, specifically Bill Murray and Adam Driver, just their dry sarcasm. Actually, it made me laugh a couple of times. I got a few chuckles out of it.
First of all, yeah, let me start off talking about the actors. Bill Murray and Adam Driver were great in this movie. I love all of Adam Driver's line delivery.
Oh yeah.
The one thing I was really disappointed with was in the trailer when he says, "Oh, I think it was zombies," the undead ghouls. I love the way he delivered the line ghouls, and they just cut that out of the movie, which really disappointed me.
I actually didn't notice that.
Yeah, I noticed it because that was like my favorite part of the trailer. I just love the way he delivered that, with just like this deadpan tone.
Yeah.
And they just cut it out, and I'm like, oh, okay. But this movie is so all over the place, and there's so many bits that I love. Mainly, whenever the movie cuts away from Adam Driver and Bill Murray, this movie just goes really downhill because like there are all these characters that do nothing in the movie. If you cut it out, like it would have added nothing to this movie.
For real. I mean, that was kind of like my biggest issue with this is the movie is only an hour and a half long. It felt like 3 hours because it was moving so slow with these non-characters.
I'll even admit, like around the time when like the zombies started coming up, I was falling asleep mainly because I didn't get enough sleep last night. Yeah. But that's like one of the biggest problems with this movie. It does move way too slow.
Yeah. And then, like you were saying, it's just like after you move away from Bill Murray and Adam Driver and Chloe Sevigny, I thought she was funny too. But you get these group of kids that's in I guess there's some orphanage school or whatever.
I think a juvenile detention center.
Oh, that's what that was? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Well, I guess it doesn't matter because they don't add anything to the movie.
They don't. They're literally just there to give exposition about why the zombie apocalypse is happening.
And I thought that was unnecessary too, because I mean the movie kind of starts off with a newscast like, oh, polar frac. Oh, that's another thing we'll get into later. Is the messaging is just so. Oh, we'll get into that, but it starts off talking about polar fracting shifts the Earth off its axis, so that's why zombies come in. And then you spend time on these kids pretty much saying the same thing. It's like, all right, why are we here? Come on.
Yeah, and then you had Danny Glover in this movie, and like this one kid who's like he's in everything. Like I just don't know his name.
Yeah, I know you. Yeah. I think it's Club something.
Yeah, they're in this together for a little bit. Selena Gomez is in this movie, which I thought she stopped acting after Rose's replaced and just did music. She's still acting.
Although she's in this Hotel Transylvania movie still. So
is she?
Yeah, I only know that because I have little brothers, but
gotcha. Yeah. I will say her character led into like one of the best jokes in the movie where there's a scene where after the zombies came, like they're all driving around, they're like, oh, we should check the motel. That's another problem with this movie. It's just so random. Like they just do things with like no rhyme or no motivation at all in the story. They're just like, let's drive here, let's drive there, let's go here, and so okay, whatever. But they drive to this motel, right, where Selena Gomez and her friends were staying. And they go in the room and they find them all dead. They're all eating stuff. Right. And so Adam Driver has like chop off their heads to make sure they don't come back to life. And he walks out holding Selena Gomez's head. And it was so funny. And the lady's like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, well, I had to chop their heads off so they don't come back. And he has like this big deadpan delivery. And I loved it so much. And, it gave Selena Gomez's character a purpose when she had none.
I don't know. I still felt. I mean, I like that joke too, but even with that, I kind of felt like their character still didn't serve any purpose because they're introduced and then they die, but we don't
Yeah.
even see them die.
The only
So,
purpose they served was to deliver the best joke in the movie.
and yeah, I guess that's the whole thing. Is like the movie, like the best parts are with Adam Driver and Bill Murray. I even like that joke he said when he first meets Selena Gomez, and he's like, "Oh, she's Mexican." It's like, how can you tell? I have an affinity for Mexicans. It's so random, but I love that.
It is.
Great delivery.
I've been to Mexico twice.
Yeah. And even like the little stuff, like very early on, he talks about having a little car. I forget what type of car it is, but
You said it like smart car.
yeah, the smart car. And then it's like a few scenes later, I see him pose up to the diner, and it's such a non-joke, but just the way he posed on the screen, it's such that tiny car. I just started chuckling for a
Yeah. Like his introduction in that whole diner scene is really good. What sucks is like afterwards when the girl gets introduced, the girl cop, and they do it the same way, but just doesn't have the same comedy to it, really.
Yeah. It felt just repetitive. I mean, I get that was the point, but it was just kind of unnecessary at that point.
Yeah. And then this movie gets meta for no reason. You know, like they play the opening credits with the theme song. And then later on, it's Bill Murray and Adam Driver in the car. They turn on the radio. It's like, oh, the dead don't die. And Bill Murray says, oh, I've heard this song before. Where was this? He's like, it was in the opening credits.
It's the theme song. Like,
yeah.
That actually got a good laugh out of me because I was not expecting that. But
and then like the last scene, you know, after Tilda Swinton gets swept up by the aliens, which I'm just gonna leave that there. I'm not gonna explain it anymore. She gets swept up by aliens.
Yeah, the movie doesn't explain it, so you have no reason to.
Yeah. So she gets swept up by aliens, and then Bill Murray's like, "Oh my god, we're so screwed. Oh my god, this is so terrible. How can you be so chill?"
Hey, wait, Alex, you have to say that with a lot less emotion, man.
With a lot less emotion. and so Adam Driver's like, "Well, it's because I read the script." And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've read the entire script. Jim only sent me the parts where we were in it." Which is so weird because the final scene in the movie, Bill Murray and Adam Driver are both in it. And so Bill Murray should know how it ends.
Right.
Which is like this big paradox that like I can't stop thinking of.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, at least the first one, when they break the first wall the first time, that got a good laugh out of me. The second time, it was funny still, but it's just so weird because they don't really establish like the movie breaking the fourth wall very often. I think that's the only two times they do it throughout the whole movie, right?
Yeah, they only do they do a third time when they find the CD of the Dead Don't Die theme.
Oh, right. So yeah, I mean, and it really doesn't add anything to the movie at the end of it all. It's like, so we're just doing this just to do this. It's like, what the hell was the point of this?
Yeah, and then the way it ends, it just ends with those two dying, and that's the end of it. It's such a random and nothing movie, but it's objectively it's bad, but I still enjoyed it. I would still recommend it if you just want like some really funny deadpan humor.
Yeah, I can't recommend it. I'm glad you enjoyed it, but just the laughs that I did get, they were good, but it was just so few and far between for me. And then what really pushed this movie over is right at the end they have Tom Waits deliver this so heavy-handed monologue and give this whole message about environmentalism and we're just a bunch of mindless zombies obsessed with materialism and consumerism. It's like, how would you say it?
Oh no, continue.
Oh no, because I was saying it really just doesn't fit into the movie at all. It's like, and plus we've already seen this metaphor used with zombie films, which is really weird because this movie makes reference to George Romero. It's like he's done this already and better, so you really had no reason to throw in such a left field message, anyways. And I just did not enjoy this movie at all.
The script definitely needed another rewrite. In order to like make these themes fit in more. Just like it's like focus more on Bill Murray and Adam Driver. But the few scenes they are in, which like they take up the majority of the movie. Actually, I said few scenes. They take up the majority of it. Those scenes are the best parts, and they're what make the movie for me. So it's a bad movie technically. I still enjoyed it. It's a guilty pleasure.
I get that. And I'm gonna put it out there, like I'm probably. I mean, I've seen the Rotten Tomato score. It's very polarizing. I think it's like at a 50%. Um, and I'm probably one of the few people that just didn't get it. But yeah, I'll just leave that there. It's like something that's not my cup of tea. I probably won't ever watch it again. But if you're into this type of movies, then yeah, I'd say go see it. But
Yeah. It's funny that you say you don't get it. I don't even think the filmmakers got it. Like they didn't even know what this movie was about. They just said, "Yeah, no, they're gonna do this, and then they're gonna do that, and that's the movie."
pretty much, so all over the place, so weird.
Yeah,
But I will say though, unlike Men in Black, it's not forgettable. So
it's definitely not forgettable. I'm gonna think about this movie forever. I'm
yeah.
probably not gonna watch it again, but I'll be thinking about it. Especially Adam Driver holding Selena Gomez's head.
Oh yeah, that's a wallpaper right there. I might
Oh,
actually get
definitely,
that.
definitely. So I guess from there, let's move on to what we watched this week. Jalen, what have you seen?
So I've seen two things, two Netflix things actually. I guess I'll start off with the first one, then we go back and forth. But
Okay.
yeah, I'll start off with it's a new movie Netflix release over the weekend called Murder Mystery. Uh, stars it's a Happy Madison movie, which if you're familiar with that, that's Mr. Adam Sandler himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll put it out there. I'm not the biggest Adam Sandler guy. I don't think a lot of people are anymore.
No.
This was the one though that I was like, I actually enjoyed this one. It's not great by any means, but it had it made me laugh consistently, and the actual mystery I thought was pretty okay.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, with this movie, you have Adam Sandler. He works for the NYPD, and his wife is Jennifer Aniston. Which I think the last time they worked together was on that Just Go With It movie. Came out like 8 years ago, I think.
I
But
remember watching that when I was in middle school and really enjoying it.
yeah, actually, I was watching that probably like a few months ago. I was like, it's not the worst Adam Sandler movie.
Mm. I mean, like I said, last time I saw was middle school, and like in
Yeah.
middle school, I enjoyed everything. So
Yeah, nah, I get that. But so yeah, they're married. He works in the NYPD, and he takes her out for the anniversary to go to Europe. But while they're on the plane, Jennifer Aniston runs into Luke Evans' character, who is he's family of this rich heirloom, and he invites them out to spend the weekend on their boat. So of course they go on the boat on their yacht, and they get caught up in a murder. Somebody's just randomly murdered on the boat. So of course, because they're the only Americans there, they're not family. They're broke people from the United States. Everything's pinned on them. So they spend the movie trying to figure out like who's the actual murderer here. And yeah, I think it's a fun movie. And I might be a little reliant. I'm sorry, I might be going easy on it a bit just because it's a Netflix movie. But it was fun throughout. It kept me engaged throughout the whole time. I think this is kind of the best Adam Sandler's been in comedies in a while because what I don't like what he does is actually two things. The biggest one is when he's so over the top and makes all those stupid noises like do do do, like that gets on my nerves so much.
Oh yeah.
And then the other side is where you could tell he's clearly bored in the movie, and he's so like monotone.
I feel like that's been a lot of his more recent movies. Like early on, he despite how bad his movies were, like he still put in a lot of energy to it. Right. Nowadays, he's just like he looks bored as all hell.
Oh yeah, like what was that Pixels and the Blended movie? Like he was clearly there just for a check, but I don't blame him.
A check and a vacation in a fancy place.
That's another thing. He does seem to be taking a lot. Like all his movies, they always go to some exotic location. It's like, did you just make this to take a vacation with your friends?
Yeah, that's exactly what he does.
But yeah, in any case, like I felt like this one he's found a good balance where he's not over the top, but he's very charismatic, and his whole style of comedy is very dry sarcasm, and I think he pulls it off pretty well here and bounces it off of Jennifer Aniston pretty well. And yeah, like I said, it made me laugh consistently, and the actual murder mystery aspect to it, I'm gonna admit, I thought it was gonna be pretty straightforward. Like, oh yeah, it's so obviously it's this person. By the end of it, all through all the twists and turns, it actually kept me guessing. Like, so who is it now? And when you get to the final revelation, it's like, all right, well, it's nothing too like mind-blowingly shocking, but it caught me off guard, and I definitely got to give it props for that. I appreciated that. So yeah, overall, it's nothing I'm gonna give like a raving review about it, but since it's on Netflix, it's a short watch, it's an easy watch. I definitely recommend it if you're just sitting at home, just wanting something to watch on your couch. Uh, it's a pretty fun movie. So good job, Adam Sandler. Please start making less terrible movies like this.
It's interesting because Adam Sandler is like known for a slew of awful comedies, but then every now and then he makes this gem where he does like this really great drama. Like my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie, Punch Drunk Love.
Oh yeah,
I love that movie, and like his comedy in that movie works so well. His performance in that movie is so great. That's just such a fantastic movie. 2 years ago he had the Meyerowitz story.
Stories, yeah.
Yeah. This year he has a movie with the Safdie brothers who did Good Time called Uncut Gems.
Okay.
Which I'm definitely looking forward to.
Yeah, I like Good Times, so definitely be checking that one out.
Yeah. So I find it interesting because like he does like all these comedies just like to make a quick buck, and then he'll do this drama where he's like outstanding in it.
Yeah, because he's a great actor. I mean, like you were saying, Punch Drunk Love, and there's another one he did. I can't remember the name of it now. Spanglish. I thought he was really good in that. He's a good actor. It's just he chooses to do a lot of crappy projects for some reason. Well, for the money.
So I guess I'll move on to what I've seen this week. On Tuesday, I took the Long Island Railroad all the way to Penn Station. Then me and my uncle walked 20 blocks for about 40 minutes to AMC Lincoln Square, just so we can watch The Last Black Man in San Francisco. And it was hot. I wore jeans instead of shorts because I thought it was gonna be a cool 70, not a hot 70. So yeah, it was an uncomfortable walk. I was hungry, I was thirsty, but it was well worth it because I love The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
Nice.
So this movie's about a black man who lives in San Francisco. It's about like gentrification and stuff. And basically the whole premise is there's this one house that his grandfather built way back in the 1940s. And he's obsessed with this house, but there are two white people living in the house. And he feels like he doesn't take good care. They don't take good care of it enough. So what he'll do is he'll sneak into the house while they're gone and he'll fix things up. Like he'll paint the house. He'll fix the shed. He'll fix this. He'll fix that. And he's not doing anything harmful. He just really loves this house and cares a lot about it. And so he just feels the need to like take care of it the best he can. And so it's this really great movie, this really great love letter to San Francisco. And it's like a lot of the cinematography adds a lot to like the surreal and fantastical atmosphere of the movie.
Right.
Because it's very like the cinematography is like very bright. It's very surreal, like I said. Like there's this one shot I love where he's standing outside of the house and he's explaining the history of it. And it's focused on him, right? It's like a medium shot of him and then it zooms out. It's like a wide shot of the house, and it's not something you'd see like in a regular drama, but because this movie is like so surreal and so fantastical, they just like pull something like that off, and it's really great. It's really wonderful. So yeah, and the performances in this are really great. Let me pull up the actors' names real quick. So we got Jimmy Fails as Jimmy Fails and Jonathan Majors as Montgomery Allen. And I just thought they both were great leads in this movie, especially Jonathan Majors. I think he deserves the Best Supporting Actor nomination.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was just that good in this movie. And there's like, it's much more than just gentrification. It also talks about like toxic masculinity and how like men try to pretend to be something they're not.
Right.
Especially with this one character. No spoilers, but like there's a scene where they reveal how he truly is when he's around like his friends. And then when he's around other friends, he acts completely differently. And I just found that dynamic really interesting. So yeah, I walked 40 blocks, not 40, I walked 20 blocks to see this movie, and it was well worth it. This is going to be one of the best movies to come out this year. I highly recommend it.
Nice. I was very much looking forward to this movie. It was getting a lot of praise at Sundance earlier this year. And I remember seeing the trailer. I was like, all right, well, it's A24, so at the very least, it's going to be good. But hearing you describe it, it's like, all right, this sounds amazing. And I want to see it now, but I don't feel like taking the train out to Lincoln Square. But
yeah, I mean, listen, it's definitely worth it. So yeah, see it as soon as you can, or see it as soon as it gets out on Blu-ray. Just like
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of the best movies come out this year.
So I guess with that, then I'll go into my second thing that I watched over the weekend, and it's another Netflix property that they released. 13 episodes of the final season of Jessica Jones.
Mm.
Because, as you know, Netflix canceled all their Marvel shows, so this is the very last one.
Hashtag save Daredevil. That's literally the only
Yeah.
one I care about at this point. Just save Daredevil.
Yeah, I want them to too, but with Disney Plus coming, I don't think Netflix is gonna budge. It's unfortunate, but
Yeah.
so yeah, this is the last season of Jessica Jones. I'll say as far as all the Marvel shows after Daredevil, this is my second favorite one.
Mm.
Then Luke Cage, and then the rest of them could fight it out. Um, However, the last season of Jessica Jones, I wasn't too fond on, um, just because even now thinking about it, I don't remember much from it.
Mm.
So I'll say off the bat, this season I was able to binge all 13 episodes over the weekend, and this season I think it's definitely an improvement over the last one, and overall it was pretty good. Um, so did you see the last season of Jessica Jones by any chance, or?
I saw the first season. I absolutely loved it.
Mm,
I for some reason I just never watched the second season. I didn't hear a lot of good things about it, so I just decided I would skip it.
okay,
Um, yeah, the only two Netflix Marvel shows I really kept track of were Daredevil and Punisher.
sure.
Everything else
Oh,
I really didn't care about all that much.
okay. So you mind if I drop a little spoiler for season two, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, at the end of season two, we see that well, Trish, she goes into a coma after this surgery,
Mm.
and she comes out of it, and you see that it gives her superhuman abilities now.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole premise of this season, at least it starts off with Jessica Jones and Trish going head to head with each other because, well, now they're both superpowered, but they have two different mindsets of how they should take down criminals, and so they're always conflicting with each other. And it really comes to a head when they introduce the show's main antagonist, a man named Salinger, who's a serial killer, but he doesn't have any superpowers himself. He's just the nutcase, but he's
Mm-hmm.
really smart. So just seeing like their whole conflict with each other, trying to work together, but always at odds to take down this guy. I thought it was actually interesting for the 13 episodes. And that's actually like my biggest pet peeve with all these Marvel Netflix shows is that 13 episodes is way too long and it
Agreed.
drags out.
I feel
It's
like the only
either,
show I feel like the only shows I've earned that was Daredevil.
yeah,
The first and third season, second season, I'm really mixed on. I don't like that season as much as the other two seasons.
yeah,
But every other show, it's always dragged on for way too long.
for real. Like it's either it drags on in the beginning and then it picks up later, or it starts off strong, drags off in the middle, or it just drags off right at the end of it.
Mm.
Uh, for this one, I won't say it dragged on all that much, but it's definitely a slow start for like the first 2 or 3 episodes. After that, I think it picks up, especially at the eighth episode, they drop like a whole major twist to the show, to the season, where it's like, okay, well, now we're moving somewhere. And from there on, it's definitely interesting and entertaining ride all the way through. It's
Mm.
very suspenseful. Jessica Jones, she's the private detective of the Defenders group. So you're going to get a good mystery with it, follow her on her cases. And I do like, with all 3 seasons of the show, I do like how they always put you in her perspective, where whatever she finds out, you find out with her. Like you're always in her shoes. And once again, they do a great job doing that here. Except now the twist is, since Trish is a superpowered human, they are able to flip it back and forth. But I'll say that's also kind of the downfall with this season, because I think there's several episodes here where they'll show you the same episode that you saw previously, except from the perspective of Trish, and
Mm.
that it's so unnecessary. It feels like they're just padding it out to get that 13 episode runtime. It's like, all right, well, I could have skipped this episode, but I've already watched it, so we'll move on. Um, and it's actually a shame too, because Kristen Ritter, who is Jessica Jones, she actually directed one of those episodes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I believe it was the second episode she directed, where it focuses on Trisha's perspective, but it's such a waste of an episode. It's like, oh, well, I wish she put her talents into another one of these episodes. But
Mm.
for a directorial debut, I thought it was very well handled. It's good cinematography for the most part. So
Hmm.
props to Kristen Ritter. Also for her performance too. Once again, she's great. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's really not much to say since it's the last one. Especially like when there's a show or a movie or series that gets canceled abruptly, and you can tell they have plans for it afterwards, but they're not
Hmm.
able to do it. This one, it does end very abruptly, where it's like, okay, there's more story to tell, but because of this whole Netflix Disney thing going on, we're not going to be able to see it, and it's disappointing. But I'll take what I can get. I'm not mad I saw these 13 episodes. It's a good watch overall. I enjoyed it.
I guess from there, I really want to just like move into discussion about the Marvel Netflix shows. I have another thing I want to talk about, but I want to talk about this for a little bit.
Okay.
Because these Netflix shows are such an interesting failure. I use failure lightly because like not all of it was bad, not all
Yeah.
of it was great. There are moments of greatness all throughout these shows, except for Iron Fist. That show sucks. Um, yeah, just like I remember first season of Daredevil came out when I was like 15, and I watched it, and I absolutely loved that season.
Mm,
And even like I rewatched it before the third season came out, and I really loved it.
yeah.
And so then you move on from Daredevil to Jessica Jones, which came out a couple months later. That
Mm,
first season was also so great. Granted, a couple episodes too long, but there's
yeah.
just so much that I love about that season. I love the villain.
Oh
I
yeah.
really love what they do with Jessica Jones' character. How she's a victim of rape, of sexual assault,
Hmm.
and so it's like dealing with that on a superhero level, which I thought was really great, really powerful.
Oh yeah.
And then after that, you got Daredevil season two, which is such a mixed bag. I love the first four episodes with the Punisher because that adds in the most interesting dynamic because it's pitting the Punisher's morals against Daredevil's morals
Right.
about whether or not how you should handle criminals, or whether or not you should kill or whatnot. And that was great. I think it was episode three of season two, is
Hmm.
honestly my favorite episode of Daredevil. Period. You know.
Oh, which one was that one again? You remember?
That that was the one where Punisher had Daredevil locked up
Oh,
in
chained
chains on
up.
the roof.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. That was a
And
great episode.
I love that episode because it's just the two of them sitting there on the roof
Mm.
talking about their beliefs, about their morals. And like the Punisher has this one great line where it's like, you know what you don't know? You're one bad day away from being me. And that just like that was such a great line because it goes to show, their different upbringings, how they both, dealt with different things. They both dealt with tragedy, but in different ways and at different points in their lives. And
Right.
and so I just find that really interesting. And so
Hmm.
those first four episodes are great. And then they bring in the Hand, which
Oh,
is the
I
downfall
forgot
of
about
this entire Netflix Marvel thing,
that. Yeah,
honestly.
I agree.
Because the Hand were so boring. And
Super.
I don't know how you make a magical ninja death Kobe boring. Like ninjas are cool. John Wick made them cool. Why can't Marvel make them cool?
I think you have Netflix and their cheap budget to blame for that because they didn't do
Yeah.
anything cool with them whatsoever.
Yeah, because in Daredevil season two, they introduced them as ninjas, and every time it cut away to the Hand or Elektra, I just got really bored. I didn't care. But then
Yeah.
when it cut to Matt dealing with his personal life, how Daredevil affects his personal life, when it cut to the
Mm.
Punisher, that was a lot more interesting.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and so yeah, season two was a big mixed bag for me. There are parts of it that I love, there are parts of it that I hate. Um, and then after that, you got Luke Cage. Starts off really great, and then they kill off their main villain halfway through.
Marshall
And
Ali.
yeah, they kill him off halfway through. He was such a great villain, and they bring in this cartoonish villain, and then they drag it on for way too long. That season was way too long.
For real.
And like the first six episodes were great. The last six episodes left just I didn't care at all.
Yeah, I was the same way. Although there was episodes within that back half of it that I liked. Like I like the whole aspect of Luke Cage going against the NYPD. They
Hmm.
would try to vilify him because I did like how it spoke on modern real life issues with that, even if it was a bit heavy handed. But yeah, overall the story and going with Diamondback, it dragged on for way too long.
Yeah, and then like they had it where he got shot by that Chitari
Oh
bullet.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I think they dragged it on for three episodes, and that could have been one episode, one or two, and that would have been fine.
yeah.
So
And
yeah,
there was like a flashback.
mhm. So then after Luke Cage, you get Iron Fist, which I don't know much about Iron Fist. Actually, I read one of his comics after I saw the show because I'm like, oh man, Iron Fist is so boring. Is he this boring in the comics? He is not that boring in the comics because they took this. So basically, he's how do I put this? Like he's the white savior Asian Thor, basically. And so it's this white dude and there's like this Asian fantasy land.
Mhm.
And yeah, Kun Long is basically Asian Asgard. Um, and then he deals with like all types of magical stuff, fights in these like big tournaments and stuff. And I read
Mhm.
The Immortal Iron Fist by Ed Brubaker and I forget the name of the Matt Fraction, I think his name is.
Okay.
And that was such a great comic. Granted, the character of Danny Rand isn't all that interesting, but a lot of the characters around him are really interesting. I love the lore. I love the world they built. And I just, yeah, that comic was a lot of fun. And so you go to the Iron Fist show, and they remove all the cool magical elements. They make him this street level crime fighter, and it's so boring.
Yeah, I didn't finish that one actually.
Me
I stopped.
neither. I got 8 episodes into it, and then I'm like, I don't like this. Why would I force myself to watch it?
Yeah, that was. I mean, we talk about the bad aspects of the Netflix Marvel shows. That was like the worst of the worst. Like all the bad aspects of it piled into one show or one season rather.
Exactly. And like the interesting too is like there's nothing to differentiate Iron Fist from Batman, Iron Man, or Green
Mm,
Arrow, or all those like billionaire vigilante heroes.
pretty much.
If you made this its own big budget film, there could have been a lot to differentiate it from the other ones.
Yeah.
But like I said, they stripped away all the magical elements, and so you're left with Iron Fist, who's a street level crime fighter who's a billionaire. Like, oh my god, we've seen this before. And the Hand, once again, were so boring. Like, I think the issue with the Hand is like there's no central main villain behind all of it.
Yeah.
Like the villain changes every season, and so there's no one there to be intimidating. They don't have much of like a villainous presence, and so and like their goal is never really clear about what they want until like the Defenders. There's
Yeah.
like you don't get the sense that it's building up to something,
Yeah, and I agree. And even then, I still don't understand what their whole purpose was
Mhm.
besides getting the whole group together.
Yeah, and then Defenders comes, and it's fine.
Mm,
Because I love the dynamic between the actual Defenders themselves, and
yeah.
Daredevil's the best part of that show because they really leaned into his character arc of how how he like had this great distance between him and his friends because of his vigilante life.
Right.
And that, like, I love all the stuff with Daredevil in that show. I love it when they get all the characters together and they start interacting and stuff. But what really drags that show down is the Hand and how boring they are. With a
Yeah.
more interesting villain, that show could have been way better. But it gets dragged down because of how uninteresting I find them.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like the defenders themselves, like my favorite aspect of the defenders was the whole dynamic between the four of them and specifically with Danny and Luke. Like I was waiting for that spin-off to happen. Obviously that's not happening now.
Yeah.
But that was fine. It's just the whole, like you were saying, the Hand being villains. You got Sigourney Weaver there. She doesn't do anything, and the dialogue is, oh man, we're not gonna get into all of that now. But I mean,
Yeah.
you get the point. It's just so boring.
Hmm. And yeah, they even make Danny Rand somewhat likable.
Mm.
Mainly because like everyone just pokes fun at him because Danny Rand was a really boring protagonist, and
Mhm.
so when you put him in a group setting, like, and he's able to bounce off everyone else,
Yeah.
it was just a lot more interesting. And I hear that one episode with him and Luke Cage, and the Luke Cage show was pretty good. I never watched season 2, so
Yeah, that was my favorite episode. And then they throw down to another Wu Tang song. It's one of the best scenes of all these shows, I think. At least my
uh,
favorite one.
yeah. I don't know. I feel like taking those two characters going for a heroes for a hire route would have been a lot more interesting. Because one of my favorite scenes in the Defenders was when Luke Cage calls out Iron Fist for his white privilege,
Hmm.
and he's like, you have all this money, you have all this power, and yet you go around beating up kids,
Yeah.
that are just trying to make a living,
Right.
and it's just like this really interesting dynamic. Because you get characters like Batman or Green Arrow where, yeah, their superpower is white privilege. Let's not get around. And
Pretty
so like,
much.
yeah, and like that's what they do. They go around beating up low level criminals. All these people, like, they're poor and they're just trying to find money any way possible. Granted, you kind of look past all that stuff when you're reading the comics and watching the movie and stuff. But if you were to look at it at a more realistic angle, that's basically what they're doing.
It's exactly what they're doing.
Good. Like I said, these are comic books. You're not supposed to look at it too realistically, but it's just interesting when you do look at it from that perspective.
I will say though that that's a bit off topic, but with the latest Spider-Man game that was on the PS4, they kind of sort of address it where like you do open world side missions and you stop thugs and stuff, but Peter, he does seem to be hyper aware of like, well, these are just people caught in bad situations. I'm not gonna decapitate them or do anything too vile to them.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna stop them.
Exactly. And so yeah, Defenders was really it was fine. Could have been better.
Yeah.
Then I didn't watch the majority of like the season 2s that came out. Like I said, I didn't watch Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones season 2. I watched Punisher season 1 and 2, and I really enjoyed both seasons. Both of them, like I said, like we've said before, they all go on for way too long. But there's a lot in there that I really enjoyed, especially like with the character Frank Castle. I just find his character so interesting.
Yeah.
And the one thing I love that they acknowledge, because like the big issue with Frank Castle as a pop culture icon is that it's given a lot of power to like these like people, like all these people who are in the far right and who are like, yeah, Frank Castle, he's the man, like, kill all the criminals. Yeah. And so this show like really addresses that, especially because like a Punisher show isn't really going to work in 2019 with like all these like, all these like mass shootings.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be, you're going to have to like tread lightly. And they did a really good job at acknowledging that Frank Castle isn't a good guy. They acknowledge that he has a messed up past, that, he believes that he was just born for killing, and like he doesn't like that about himself.
Right.
But it's just something he does. And like they don't paint him as a good person. And I really like that. And then we have Daredevil season 3, which is one of the best things Marvel has put out.
I love that season.
That season is a masterpiece on its own.
Mm-hmm.
They pit Matt Murdock, and like it's Matt Murdock versus the world. Everything has turned against him. He lost the love of his life. His friends have abandoned him. His mortal enemy has been let out of prison, and he's like taking power again. And it's all about Matt like struggling with his religion, with his morals, and he's like, should I kill this guy? And I absolutely love that, especially the final scene between him and Kingpin.
Oh yeah,
that is masterclass acting right there.
I loved it. I beat you. It's like, this is great.
that was just so good. And so yeah, Marvel and Netflix, a really mixed bag, but an interesting thing to look at in retrospect.
Yeah, I will say, because I think the biggest downfall of the show was that the budget kind of limited them. Because the whole concept of these shows are to keep the heroes street level, but the action in it and the special effects are just so cheap. Like you have Jessica Jones, she's super strong. The only thing she really does is like push things really far and punch people really far. It's like, all right, well, Netflix, you're a $1 billion company. You guys could have done more with this.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely do a lot more with like Luke Cage and Daredevil and Punisher and like their power sets and their skills. I feel like Jessica Jones, because like in the first season they lean more into like the noir part of I feel like she's not really much of a fighter. She's more about solving mysteries and like exploring her as a character, and that's about fighting stuff.
Yeah, and I get that too. But at the same time, though, the scenes that they do have, that's the action. It's shot very basically. It's like we could have done more with this. Even with Luke Cage, I felt like there was times where the show was very cheap, very limited in his powers. But then you get something like Daredevil where it's able to work around its budget, which they kind of get away with it because it's mostly martial arts. So no matter what, it's gonna look cool if you film it the right way.
Yeah, and they even pull out these like really great one-shot action sequences, which are incredible.
Season 3 one from the whole prison sequence, that was just, I still watch it to this day, just that one sequence where he's trying to make his way out after Kingpin kind of sets him up, and it's all one shot going through. It looks great, but yeah, the budget, overall I think it set them back. And now that Disney has their Disney Plus thing, I doubt they're going to be able to revive the show since it belongs to Netflix technically.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we'll see what they do with because what's the shows they got coming out for that? I know there's a Falcon and Winter Soldier one.
There's the Wanda and Vision,
Right.
Loki, the Marvel What If story.
Right. And I heard something about Hawkeye getting a show, but I don't know if that was officially confirmed.
I think that was a rumor that's going around. It might be officially confirmed at some point.
Okay. So, I doubt it'll be as gritty as the Netflix shows, but maybe with a better budget and with it actually containing more high-class actors, we'll see how it lives up. But yeah, it's so disappointing to see the Netflix Marvel shows just decline into cancellation.
Yeah. So yeah, Marvel Netflix, really interesting. It was just like really interesting all around because like like I said, there are things I loved, there are things I hate. I wouldn't say I mean, in the technical sense, it was a failure because they ended up canceling all of them.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of great things to come out of that. Some really great television. So yeah, so I guess we'll move on to what I saw this week after that long discussion. I have the Criterion channel. So I'm watching a bunch of like foreign movies and old foreign movies.
Okay.
And so I watched Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker. Have you ever heard of that movie?
I actually haven't. I heard of Tarkovsky though.
Mm. So basically what this movie's about, it's a post-apocalyptic story. And so everyone lives in like this secluded city, and there's this, I forgot, there's this place called the Zone, and no one is allowed in that because like years ago, like this meteorite fell and then like it demolished everything. And there's like this one place in the Zone where if you go to this one room, you can have any one desire you want.
Okay.
And so the main character, he's a stalker, and like they refer to him as the stalker throughout the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
And his job is to take people who want their deepest desire fulfilled to the Zone, and so they can have their wish fulfilled. And it's highly legal. They have like sneak around security and whatnot. And I thought it was a really interesting movie. So one of the interesting things to note is like when they're in their town, in their city, like the cinematography is like this. It's basically all gold. Like there's not a whole lot of color other than gold. Like the whole thing is shot in gold, basically.
Oh wow.
Maybe not gold, like a bronzish type color, right. Yellowish, brownish type color, but basically just like this really filthy color.
Okay.
And so like, and then when they move out into the Zone, that's when it becomes like more naturalistic colors. I mean, it's still bleak, but right. It's not as out there as the cinematography and like within like the town and whatnot.
I got you.
And so, it's really long. It's almost 3 hours long.
Oof.
Yeah, and it is admittedly a pretty slow movie. There are parts where I did find myself zoning out, but there's really interesting discussions to be had with this movie about like faith and like human desire and how if like humans can have any desire they want, like how selfish they would be with it. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, if I had a wish, I would wish for world peace." But actually, in actuality, you probably just benefit yourself.
Yeah, just to make your life better.
Yeah.
Which, nothing wrong with that, but realistically speaking.
Yeah. And so, there's like a lot of like religious symbolism, which I find really surprising because this movie was made in the Soviet Union. And I could have sworn like they were like so anti-religions. Like, and so like there's like a lot of religious symbolism in this, and like which I found really surprising. Yeah, and like they even like show a picture of like one of the saints at one point, and I would have thought like considering how strict the Soviet Union were at the time, like they would have been like, no, you can't have that, no religion at all. But I guess because like it offers such like a nuanced discussion on religion and faith and whether or not we should have faith or religion at all. Maybe they allowed it because of that. But yeah, no, it's just like it's long scenes of these characters like just discussing philosophy while like going through the Zone, and like, it's an art house movie, so it is like very surreal. I've been watching a lot of surreal movies this week. But yeah, no, it's a very surreal movie. Like things just like it's very confusing what happens in the Zone like to the characters, because like they're walking around, like sometimes they'll go in loops, and like they have like sometimes they get lost and stuff. They have to tread carefully. And it's really interesting, especially like the final scene, because like they finally make it to the Zone, and that's when they have like this big discussion about like whether or not this something like this should exist, and whether or not they should use it. Whether or not someone would actually use it to like benefit others rather than themselves. And the main character, like I said, he's the stalker. He's the one who brings the people to these rooms, and he finds joy in the fact that he brings faith to people. He brings them their deepest desire, and he brings them a sense of faith. And it's just like this whole movie is like him questioning that because of these two characters he brings along with them.
Right.
Because he's like, oh, I'm trying to bring them faith, but they don't want it. And, just like if people don't want it, then what am I doing here? How am I going to find joy?
Right.
And I just found that discussion really interesting. So yeah, Stalker, I recommend it. Like my biggest complaint is that like things go on for way too long. Like they really drag things out. Like especially like there's this one shot, like it's this really great wide shot of all of them just like sitting around, like all depressed and stuff. And like, it's just like really darkly lit room. It's like really bleak and stuff. It's a really great shot. It goes on for way too long. Like they have it on there for I don't even know how long. It felt like 2 minutes. It was probably less than that, but it just felt like it went on for way too long. Which is like I said, a great shot. It's like something that's gonna be all over the Twitter page of like one perfect shot.
Yeah.
But they could have like cut some of it down, in my opinion. Also, the way they shoot this movie is really interesting because a lot of it is done in one takes, but it's not very flashy at all. It's not like
really?
Yeah, it's like Roma, where like Roma is like very flashy when it comes to their long takes. Maybe not as flashy as like other Cuarón films.
Yeah.
But you can obviously tell they're long takes because like the way he moves the camera, and so with this, like they have like small camera movements within their takes. But it's nothing major. It's just more let the camera sit there, let these actors do their thing, and then like we'll move it a little bit to follow the actor,
Right. It's interesting. Actually, I'm always drawn to long takes just to marvel at it. It's always a spectacle to see. So
Stalker, I recommend it. Might be a bit slow, but I thought it was a really great movie. Really great discussion on faith. So yeah, check it out if you have the Criterion channel.
Yeah, I think I will. So it sounds very philosophical. So I think it's something I'd be interested in seeing, even at almost 3 hour runtime.
Yeah. Definitely after this, I definitely want to check out Solaris, which I've never seen, which I've heard is really great.
Yeah, that was the one film I heard from Tarkovsky. I can't even say his name tonight, but and everybody always speaks highly about it. So.
So yeah, I think that's gonna be it for our podcast today. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at the Film School Snobs. Email us thefilmschoolsnobs@gmail.com. You can find the latest podcast on SoundCloud. So I recently realized something. I can only have one podcast up at a time unless I pay for it. And I am a very cheap person. I'm not gonna pay for it. So what we'll do is like we'll have that one podcast up for the week. And then all of our other podcasts, we will have on YouTube. Someday when we become more successful, we can have people donate money, and then I'll pay for it. We'll have like a Patreon just for that, so we can have like all of our SoundClouds at the same time.
Okay.
But until then, that's how it's gonna be. Because we're just starting off. So yeah. You can follow me on
Twitter.
Yeah, we're broke film school snobs.
Exactly. For now.
For now, yeah. Yeah, and then we're gonna graduate, and we're just gonna be film snobs. We're gonna be sitting around complaining about movies, trying to break our way in. We'll just be film snobs.
You hear my mother in the background. Get a job.
I complain about movies. That is my job, Mom. But yeah, all the links for that will be in the description. Follow me on Twitter, Jedi Master Alex. And follow me on Letterboxd, so you can see all my reviews. You can either look at my name, Alexander Zabetta, or look AlexZep99. That's my Twitter handle. And yeah, this has been the Film School Snobs podcast. So we'll see you guys next time.
Later.